At this point, it's lazy and sloppy and hackneyed. To be in a club where, I'm walking down the hall at the comedy club, at the Comedy Store, and, in one room, someone's doing their bit about trans people, and then I get down the hall and there's someone on stage going, well, I guess I got to do my bit about trans people. Like, no, you don't. You don't. It's hack now. I mean, you guys got the freedom you wanted. You can now say whatever you want. They're defeated. Their rights have been denied. The policies that you guys encouraged with your stupid material are now policy. And now, half the people under the umbrella of anti-woke, we've lost a tremendous amount of democratic-leaning ideas and movements. So whether they knew it or not, that's what they were spearheading. So now it's reality, and you want to still keep kicking them?
I don't know that the comedians have had that much power.
Are you out of your mind?
No, I'm being serious.
Joe Rogan. I'm not going to.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You can't separate. Like, if the movement is like, we're being censored. No, you're not. You're not. There's no constitutional censorship issue with your free speech. You say things, and in a democratic show of an environment, like Twitter or whatever, there's cultural pushback. To frame it as some sort of free speech problem was a misdirect. Why does it have to be the same four things? It's like they talk about the same shit, and I don't know a better definition of hack.
To say this man is going on a legendary podcast run to promote his new comedy special is actually insulting, because Marc Maron has been in the game for years.
It's just straight up about representation in marginalized communities, vulnerable people, and it's like we don't have to break it all down, but and I know it was never just about the words, but ultimately these guys were marks for the right-wing propaganda machine and absorbed by their agenda and spearheaded what was in their eyes, I talk about in the special, this ability to say words they wanted to say, but they used anti-woke to dismantle all progressive policy for everybody.
Yeah.
So it's partially on them, and I can't separate it. Whether they were willing collaborators or just grifting for themselves. I mean, it's like them, And now you have comics. The other shift too with the right wing political comics is that there's a blurring of the line of comic and commentator or influencer. The right wing has opened up the sort of expanded the minds of fairly shallow people into believing that they can debate, that they have a point of view, and that it's based in this very slippery slope of evolving bullshit that gets them worked up.
Because, as he discussed with the Majority Report's Sam Cedar, he's seen how political comedy has not only evolved, but in turn, its mainstreamness within the right wing.
They thought that their fight was really about free speech, which wasn't on a constitutional basis. So the entire premise of we're being denied our free speech was based in the active kind of movement of democracy to move forward.
When you say anti-woke comics, either you can say specific names, or what do you think of, or who do you think of, or what are you imagining?
There's the wormy way to handle it, like Bill Maher, where you're like, hey, I'm as liberal as the next guy, but, the liberals have gone too far with this thing. People are getting, canceled or whatever. But those were corporate decisions based on, I think a misread of the public sentiment, in honoring, which it was good that they did, the kind of fragility of minority communities, based in ethnicity or gender, sexual gender stuff. Rogan and Hinchcliffe and, just a lot of these people just locked into this anti-woke thing. But now, the government, which is for all practical, good intents and purposes, is an authoritarian government, and we have a fairly dominant fascistic culture. Yeah. So they're using the same language, which is anti-woke, to dismantle all progressive institutions. And, whether you like it or not, or whether that's not what you signed up for, you tied yourself to that horse. But this is the reality, is that, democracy was squashed because of, the policy now of using anti-woke to dismantle the liberal democratic state is something you didn't shut up about.
Vulture's Catherine Van Arendonk wrote, his impression of Theo Von interviewing Hitler gets much of its punch from sounding alarmingly plausible, and it allows Maron to shade in some of his favorite themes on the possibilities and failures of comedians when standing up to authoritarian politics. The anti-woke flank of the new fascism is being driven almost exclusively by comics, my peers. Whether or not they are self-serving or true believers in the new fascism is unimportant. They are of the movement. Whether they see themselves as acolytes or just comics does not matter. Whether they are driven by the idea that what they are fighting for is a free speech issue, or whether they are truly morally bankrupt racists does not matter. They are part of the public face of a fascistic political movement that seeks to destroy the democratic idea. He would add, when comedians with podcasts have shameless, self-proclaimed white supremacists and fascists on their show to joke around like they are just entertainers or even just politicians, all it does is humanize and normalize fascism. When someone uses their platform for that reason, they are facilitating anti-American sentiment and promoting violent autocracy. In another portion, he types, it may be all self-serving. Greedy influencers and comics and public personalities and certainly tech companies want to align themselves with an unapologetic right-wing movement that has no concerns for regulation or law or justice or decency or democracy to increase their earnings and put them in the seat of power. Fascism is good for business if you toe the line. Popular podcasts became tribal and divisive years ago. Now they may be in the position to become part of the media oligarchy under the new anti-democratic government. W. Kamau Bell had another take on his Substack. I'm old enough to remember the East Coast versus West Coast rappers beef of the 90s. This feels like that. But instead of the beef being about who's more gangster, the fascistic comedians versus non-fascist comedians beef is about who is more democratic. He'd later print, Maron is the perfect person to take on the Trump medians and the entire Rogan sphere. No one can question Marc's comedy bona fides. Maron is also perfect for the job of taking these Trump medians to task because they can't accuse him of being woke. Maron's act has always been created in the space of the comedy club, where toes are not always carefully considered before they are stepped on.
Secretary of Homeland Security, Christy Kerr. Christy Kerr. Do you know who Christy Kerr is? She's a friend of mine, great golfer. Christy, no, she's a better golfer than you. That's the only thing, but you're better at a lot of other things. I'm grateful to be joined by two of Team USA's strongest and fastest competitors, retired gold medalist and gymnast and member of the LA 28 Athletes Council, Nastasia Lukin. Nastasia? How are you, Nastasia? Good. I don't know you, but I've watched you. You're very talented. I would not want to do what you do. This is much easier, believe me.
Old man Trump clearly having old man moments, forgetting who Kristi Noem is, and being unable to pronounce one of America's best ever gymnasts, Nastia Lukin.
I also want to welcome the chair of the U.S. Olympic Committee, Gene Sykes. Gene, thank you. Thank you, Gene, very much. And thank him for recently banning men from competing in women's sports. That's a big deal. Thank you very much. It's amazing the way I don't hear any applause for that when everyone feels it. It's a 97, don't worry about it. That's a 97-3. It's not 80-20, it's 97-3. But nobody wants to clap. It's crazy. The United States will not let men steal trophies from women at the 2028 Olympics, so we appreciate the fairness and everything else that you've shown also. And the LA Olympics is shaping up to be a wonderful moment for America. It's going to be incredible. It's so exciting. And with today's action, I'm directing the Department of State, the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, the Secret Service, the Department of Transportation, and many other departments and agencies to use every tool at their disposal to ensure a fantastic, safe, and beautiful event. In 2028, the Olympics is bringing back our national pastime, baseball. Wow, that's great. with teams playing under the lights at the legendary Dodger Stadium, and it is legendary. It's beautiful, one of the most beautiful.
So in the span of roughly 1 minute, he shouted out a Goldman Sachs guy, took a shot at trans people, which is par for the course for him, has no idea that baseball was implemented as an Olympic sport. It clearly caught him by surprise. And most importantly, and most damaging, aside from the trans comment, which he will make at every turn, is that he wants LA, Los Angeles, to be a war zone again with his people in charge.
Get back! Everybody that's here, walk that way. Get back.
There's no way. They're telling us to go this way. They're telling us to go this way. Excuse me. Why are you pointing this at me? I'm with the media.
When I showed up to the Dodger Stadium this morning, Dodgers were quick to say, "Hey, we didn't give them permission to go into the parking lot. They were denied entry," right? And then the Border Patrol said, "Yo, Dodgers, this had nothing to do with you. Vehicles were there in the stadium parking lot very briefly, unrelated to any operation or enforcement." So what was the Homeland Security doing there? Well, in my previous video, I show you. We find out that they were actually transferring prisoners that they had detained from different raids, including the Home Depot one in Hollywood. This is Joe Garcia. And they were putting them into another vehicle. Ali Bradley TV tweeted out, "I just talked with CBP sources with knowledge of what happened today at Dodger Stadium. CBP teams went to Hollywood Home Depot to make apprehensions. They did. They were going to transfer them to transfer vans off Sunset Boulevard, but when things escalated outside of the Home Depot, they went to an open parking lot at Dodger Stadium to make the consolidated transfer. Agents say no one came over and told them to leave." Now, yesterday, the Dodgers were supposedly going to make an announcement today about how they were going to help immigrant communities, right? Well, they haven't done that. We've been waiting around all day for how they were going to do that, and this just got tweeted out earlier today. Dodgers President Stan Kasten said organization is postponing its announcement of support of immigrant communities, which was supposed to come this afternoon. Quote unquote, "Because of the events earlier today, we continue to work with groups that were involved with our program, but we are going to have to delay today's announcement while we firm up some more details. We'll get back to you soon with the timing." And it looks like it's back to business as usual at Dodger Stadium, kicking out fans that want ice out of LA.
Which makes all of what we saw in Los Angeles in the past few months honestly feel like a dress rehearsal for what is potentially to come. The task force Trump assembled proclaims to be the protectors of Los Angeles during the Olympics, and that it will be a safe and seamless games. However, no one knows if they will work directly with state and local officials, or if they're just going to bypass them altogether and do their own planning from the Oval Office. From LAist, the Secret Service will be the lead security agency for the games, which were designated a National Special Security Event last year. That means the federal agency will steer the security plan and coordinate with state and local law enforcement. They would add, the executive order mobilizes agencies across the federal government to prepare for the mega event, and it names Donald Trump as chair of the task force. Trump's tax bill that he signed last month includes $1 billion for security planning and other costs related to the Olympic Games. So here's what I say. They're going to do it again. It's standard for like some folks to be put, boots on the ground prior to the Olympics and what have you from the federal government. They're going to make a spectacle again. And that's what leads me to believe all those military people and ICE people and members of DHS, they were practicing when they cleared out those parks and went after all those people. Because what they're going to try to do is say, look at how dangerous LA is, which they've always done. Look at how dangerous, because it's a blue city in a blue state. Look at how dangerous LA is. We're the only ones that could solve this problem. When that is not true in the slightest.
The issue that we talk about in the show is people not wanting to share their feelings with each other co-pilots because one might be of more experience than the other, so they might know the thing that will save a plane from crashing, but they might not want to communicate it.
Nathan,
so I assume between you two,
we like each other and we talk to each other.
But there's things you probably don't share too.
Nathan Fielder appeared on CNN. And if you know anything about who this dude is,
the show is still comedy, but also this is a serious thing. But I've been just interested in commercial airline crashes just for a while, just as like a hobby. I sort of just read about them.
Oh, you fly a lot?
Like as a passenger?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I fly normal, like planes, like everyone.
So you're concerned about airline safety?
He will always take control of any situation.
I started to notice that they can always solve the technical stuff when a crash happens. They work really hard to make sure that type of accident doesn't happen again. But for the human factor in communication, the thing keeps happening where there's miscommunication between pilots.
So clearly there's concern. You lay it out in the show. We reached out to the FAA to see what it had to say about all of this. And it told us that it mandates all airline pilots and crew members to complete interpersonal communication training. And it says it isn't seeing the data that supports the show's central claim that pilot communications is to blame for airline disasters.
Well,
so I want to get you to respond to that, obviously.
That's dumb. They're dumb. And here's the issue is that they do, like I trained to be a pilot and I'm a 737 pilot. I went through the training. The training is someone shows you a PowerPoint slide saying, if you are a co-pilot and the captain does something wrong, you need to speak up about it. That's all. That's the training. And they talk about some crashes that happened, but they don't do anything that makes it stick emotionally.
And flip the scripts on his subjects.
But I mean, it's like a human thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's definitely stuff, I'm sure you guys, like you brought up the analogy, but like, I'm sure Pamela, you don't say some things to Wolf because you're between you two, who would be like the boss or the more, like you're Wolf Blitzer, right? So you're like, your name is first on the thing. So I'm sure Pamela, at times you might not want to say, oh, Wolf wants to do something, you don't think it's a good idea. You might not want to express that always.
She's very blunt.
We actually have a pretty, I understand your
but
point.
You have to say that now.
No.
I know, but you don't want to say to Wolf, you can't, as a journalist, you don't want to say, oh, I don't want to.
She says that.
She says it to you.
Yeah.
So maybe you're afraid to say something.
Here's the great thing about Wolf is he
very
doesn't have an
blunt with her,
ego.
too.
Okay.
He has no ego, but I take your point that like.
I mean, Wolf's in movies and stuff.
He's a big deal.
He's
There
Mission
is
Impossible.
no There is no question.
So that's intimidating. That can be intimidating.
If somehow unaware this was the rehearsal's second season, it was hard to top the first, and they may have done it. And it centered around Fielder's obsession with plane crashes caused by poor cockpit communication, specifically junior pilots, being afraid to speak up when their captain or their superior was making questionable decisions and flying their aircraft into fatal peril. In theory, writes Stephen Roderick of Rolling Stone, a junior pilot can take control of the airplane if they think their captain is flying dangerously. In reality, this is fraught with career-killing implications. To give one a hilarious anecdote, and even possibly, if you haven't already, a reason to watch this show. The comedian depicts Paramount Plus as Nazis after the streamer removed an episode of his show, Nathan For You, originally on HBO as well, from its platform due to what they called sensitivities around anti-Semitism. That's according to Variety. The show, which did debut in 2013 and is absolutely hilarious, ran for 4 seasons on Paramount's Comedy Central, thus being picked up by HBO.
Met with Democratic Congressman Steve Cohen. He's the ranking member on the House Aviation Subcommittee. That meeting apparently didn't appear to go very well. In a statement to CNN, the congressman said this, and I'm quoting him now. He says he's disappointed with that meeting, saying his team was told you wanted to talk about autism and the difficulties people with the condition could have in an airplane crash. He also says most of the substantive parts of your interview never made it in the show. What are you hoping to get from that meeting? What were you hoping to get from that meeting? And have you spoken with other lawmakers here in Washington?
Well, I actually think that I tried to point out with similarities between autism, masking, and what is happening with pilots in the cockpit. And he is on the aviation subcommittee, so and I think he works in that area too. So I was trying to draw a connection and really bring up this important issue. And, you know, it's disappointing that he's sort of saying this now because, like, he still has an opportunity to tackle this issue. He's the ranking member on the aviation subcommittee. And so I don't understand why. I mean, honestly, to be honest, like, he didn't seem to know a lot about, like, when I brought up CRM, which is this issue, he didn't seem to really be, like, aware of it and the specifics. So, look, I wasn't going to bring that up because, like, but he seemed to, like, come at me a little here that, you know, so I feel like we brought him a good thing.
I find all of this to be quite awesome, to be fully transparent. Someone like Nathan Fielder, who I'm not sure if you're aware got really good grades, is going on CNN and showing the relationships and how they have many flaws amongst coworkers. He exposed this right in front of our eyes. And I don't even know if the CNN audience picked up on it. I'm sure you guys did. You guys understand this stuff. But to see it just come full circle and almost be microcosmic of what he does in this show was chef's kiss brilliance. They got uncomfortable. There was one long pause that really just captures everything. Wolf is a professional. He tried asking a few follow-up questions that were duds because he's fairly boring. But seeing the way that Pamela Brown tried complimenting Wolf and them saying, no, they give each other, you know, blunt responses back and forth, and they have a good relationship. Everything's fine. They very well may. And potentially, it could be that when they are put under pressure like this, they might fold. Or we could have learned something, which is what I am leaning towards. It's also really odd that someone like Steve Cohen, who plays up himself as this funny caricature congressman, he'll put out a bucket of KFC when a Trump nominee or someone in a hearing doesn't show up to call them chicken. And yet he rails against Nathan Fielder. Granted, we do not know everything that happened in this meeting, but he rails against Nathan Fielder when Fielder explains himself and why he brought up some of the things he did in that meeting. So it's alarming. It's also alarming that it feels as though the communication aspect of flying keeps getting downplayed. And he also showed everyone on how the FAA is falling short. And what did they do? They went after. They said he's wrong. I don't know, man. This is perfect for Fielder, considering, if you know anything about his work, that it is hilarious but relevant. And he really played his role once again to a T. A+. Hey, I appreciate you watching. Now, if you can, please do become a channel member by going to youtube.com/TYT Sports and clicking the join button. If that's too much for you, you can just go to tyt.com/join to become a member. It helps all of us out here at the Young Turks and keeps our network afloat. In addition, you could follow me on my socials on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate the love. Have a great day.